The HOA president called 911 because I bought a lake. Yes, a whole lake. And apparently that makes me some sort of domestic threat. Right now, 3 police boats are circling my dock, officers resting their hands on their weapons. Across the water, Delilah Winterbourne, queen of the HOA and self-appointed ruler of all things petty, is screaming from the shore. "He's armed! He threatened to flood the neighborhood!" I'm holding a coffee mug. The lead officer yells, "Sir, step away from the water!" Like what? I'm going to weaponize my lake? Delilah's waving papers and shrieking about federal safety violations, and I can't help but grin. Because what she doesn't know is that last night, I spent 6 hours reading 19th century federal waterway laws. And in about 30 seconds, when I show these officers my deed, she's going to learn that she just called the cops on a federally protected waterway. The air smells like gunpowder and burnt flare smoke, mixing with the steam of my French roast. This is about to get interesting. What would you do if your HOA sent armed police to your dock? Let me take you back to how this all started. 72 hours ago, when I was just a quiet retiree looking for peace and wound up in a standoff over my own lake. My name's Marcus Hoffman, 52. After 20 years designing HVAC systems in cubicles that smelled like stale coffee and fluorescent lighting, I finally escaped. My grandfather's inheritance gave me just enough to buy something remote. Somewhere quiet. The real estate listing said, distressed sale. 3 acres, 1950s cabin, private lake access. When I saw it, Lake Serenity, sunlight danced across crystal water so clear you could count the stones 20 feet down. I wrote a check that day. Should have asked why it was distressed. Moving day. I'm unloading my grandfather's old canoe when a white Lexus SUV screeches to a stop across my driveway, sideways, like it's blocking a crime scene. Out steps Delilah Winterbourne, late 50s, tennis tan, precision highlights, and a smile sharp enough to skin a fish. "Marcus," she chirps. "Welcome to Willowbrook." Her perfume hits like tear gas, expensive roses, and something chemical. "I'm your HOA president. We'll need to go over community standards right away." She's eyeing my canoe like it's a biohazard. "Lakefront properties require special oversight," she says, scribbling on a gold pen. The previous owner, poor Mrs. Patterson, had so many compliance issues before she relocated. The way she lingers on relocated sends a chill up my neck. This dock needs a full permitting review. That canoe? Non-compliant. And I smell fish. "Fish?" I ask. "Yes, dead fish." "Environmental hazard," I stare at her. "It's a lake. There are supposed to be fish." "I'll need water quality testing," she continues. "I own this lake," I tell her flatly. She laughs. A cold, brittle sound. "Oh, sweetie, you own access rights. Lake safety is managed under HOA jurisdiction." She slips me a business card. "Rick Castellanos, Environmental Compliance." "He'll inspect everything," she says. That night, I call the previous owner, Mrs. Patterson. She's in assisted living now, voice trembling through the phone. "They said the lake was contaminated," she whispers. "Made me pay for tests every month. I ran out of money. They said I was endangering children. I couldn't fight anymore." Day 3. A certified letter sits on my doorstep. Emergency violation notice. Unauthorized watercraft storage. $500 unpermitted structural modifications. $500 environmental hazard creation. $750. Total. $1,750 due in 48 hours. I call the HOA number. Delilah answers before the first ring. "Mr. Hoffman," she says sweetly, "we tried to work with you." "Work with me? You fined me for owning fish!" "Environmental compliance isn't negotiable." Rick found several concerning issues. "When was this inspection?" "Last night," she says casually. "Emergency authorization for safety concerns. The line goes dead." I check my security cameras. Rick and another man on my dock at 2 a.m., collecting samples, taking photos. That's when I read my deed line by line. Exclusive water and mineral rights. Federal Territorial Survey, 1887. Navigable waters under U.S. Commerce jurisdiction, federal jurisdiction. I drive straight to the county courthouse. Rosa, the clerk, squints at old records. "Your lake's federally classified," she says. "That means the HOA can't touch it." Can't touch it. 3 words that taste like freedom. That evening, Delilah returns with Rick and some lawyer in a cheap suit. They stride right onto my dock. "Mr. Hoffman, we're here to discuss your options," she says. Rick waves a clipboard. "Serious contamination. Immediate remediation needed. Estimated cost, $40,000. The lawyer adds, "Might be easier to sell before legal complications." I smile. Oh, I've got a better plan. Next morning, I wake to the buzz of chainsaws. 6 a.m. Rick and 2 goons are cutting down the old oak on my property line, the one that shades half my dock. "What the hell are you doing?" I shout. Rick doesn't even look up. "Emergency tree removal. HOA voted last night. Safety hazard. That tree's been here 60 years. "Exactly," he says. "Overdue." I call the sheriff. They tell me it's a civil matter. By the time I hang up, the oak crashes into the lake, sending waves across the glassy surface. That night, Delilah shows up again, with a bill. "Sorry about the confusion," she says. "Your share of the removal costs $3,200. "My share?" "Survey shows the tree was 6 inches over the property line. Common area maintenance." I grab the survey. "It's dated yesterday." She smirks. "Language matters, Mr. Hoffman. There are children here." While I argue, Rick is back on the dock taking new water samples. "What's he doing?" I demand. "Testing for contamination," she says. "Fallen trees can upset lake ecology. If toxins show up, remediation's on you. That's when it clicks. They're creating a problem to sell the solution. You dropped that tree in my lake to frame me," I tell her. Delilah's smile doesn't budge. "We're just following environmental protocol." That night, I remember something. My grandfather's old water testing kit. I sneak out, take samples from 3 points where the oak fell upstream, downstream. Results? Elevated tannins, nothing toxic. Normal decomposition. I email the results, time-stamped, to Agent Morgan, the federal contact I'd spoken to before. Her reply comes fast. Perfect documentation. Keep gathering evidence. The next morning, Rick's back with a cheap testing kit. "Routine inspection," he says. I watch closely. Fake gear, wrong procedures. "Rick," I ask, "what's your EPA certification number?" He freezes. "My what?" "Environmental consultants need EPA certification to conduct water tests." We work with labs." "Which lab?" I press. "What's their accreditation?" Sweat beads on his forehead. Because he knows testing a federally protected waterway without credentials is a federal offense. And suddenly, the man who was so eager to find me for fish looks like he just swallowed one. I lift my phone, camera rolling. "Just for documentation," I say calmly. "Can you please state your full name and your EPA certification number?" Rick freezes mid-motion, eyes darting toward the lens. Then, without a word, he shoves his fake testing kit into a plastic case, mutters something under his breath, and bolts for his truck. Got him. Later that afternoon, my phone rings. It's Janet Morrison again, my accidental lieutenant in this suburban war. "Marcus," she says, voice trembling with adrenaline. 3 more neighbors want to meet. Delilah's threatening everyone. People are done being scared. The rebellion has begun. That night, we gather in Janet's yoga studio after hours. Curtains drawn, lights low. The air smells like lavender and rebellion. 5 of us sit in a circle that feels more like a conspiracy meeting than a yoga class. There's Harold from accounting, thin, anxious, glancing at the door every 10 seconds. Rosie, a retired teacher, shows up with oatmeal cookies and a binder thicker than a Bible, every HOA violation ever issued. Tom and Linda from the corner house come separately, both pretending they didn't. Delilah's been targeting anyone who challenges her authority, Janet whispers, even though no one outside can hear us. Harold finally speaks up, his accountant voice steady but shaking. "She's been skimming from the HOA fund. I've tracked it for months, small transfers but consistent." "How much?" I ask. He slides a paper across the table. 47,000. 2 years. The room goes still, except for the quiet buzz of Janet's space heater. Rosie flips open her binder. "Look at this," she says. "Violation patterns. Patterson got 17 citations in 6 months. The Johnsons got 12 before they sold. Always escalating fines, always the same playbook. Tom clenches his jaw. She blackmailed me. Said she'd tell everyone my landscaping business was cutting corners unless I gave her community discounts for HOA projects. What kind of projects? I ask. All Rick's, he says bitterly. Driveways, tree removals, fake assessments. Inflated prices every time. Linda nods. Same thing with us. Our retirement party? Rick said our lights violated dark sky compliance and wanted $3,000 to change bulbs we'd had for a decade. I lean back, realizing the truth. This isn't about fish, trees, or lakes. It's a racketeering operation hiding under HOA bylaws. We need real evidence, I say. Harold smiles grimly and pulls a USB drive from his pocket. Already ahead of you. I downloaded every financial record before they locked me out. Payments to shell companies, fake vendor invoices, unauthorized withdrawals. Then my phone buzzes. Unknown number. Stop the meeting or code enforcement will be contacted for illegal commercial use of residential property. I show the message around. Janet's face drains of color. Tom glances toward the front window. Across the street, a pickup truck idles, lights off but engine running. Rick's. Someone inside is watching through binoculars. My gut twists. We're not just dealing with an HOA gone rogue. This is organized crime in cul-de-sacs and picket fences. Next morning, I walk outside to find my front yard soaked. My water line, sliced clean, not broken. A precision cut. A laminated tag dangles from the pipe. Service disconnected pending environmental clearance. I call the water department. Sir, the operator says, confused. We didn't shut off anything at your address. Then someone faked your notice and vandalized my property. File a police report immediately. Deputy Williams shows up an hour later, takes photos, shakes his head. Mr. Hoffman, this isn't just trespassing anymore. This is criminal destruction of property, felony level. While he documents the damage, my neighbor Bob strolls over from across the lake. 60 years old, retired electrician, tougher than nails. Marcus, he says quietly. You should know. That oak tree they took down? Wasn't sick. I climbed it last month to hang a feeder. Solid as rock. Would you testify to that? He chuckles darkly. Son, I'd testify against Delilah in hell if it meant getting our neighborhood back. That afternoon, Agent Morgan calls. Her tone is brisk, no small talk. Mr. Hoffman, we checked out Rick Castellanos. He's not licensed anywhere, but he's linked to 3 LLCs collecting money from HOAs across the county. How many communities? 17 confirmed. Same pattern. Create fake violations, demand costly fixes, pressure homeowners to sell. My stomach drops. Lake Serenity isn't their goal. It's just their next payday. What do? I ask. Keep documenting, she says. We're building a RICO case, but we need more proof of organized coordination. That evening, I'm installing a new security camera when the air shifts. Sharp, chemical, wrong, gasoline. The smell hits like a slap. I follow the trail to my boathouse. Someone's poured fuel around the foundation and stuffed oil-soaked rags near the breaker box. One spark, and it'd go up like kindling. I photograph everything, call the fire marshal, call Agent Morgan. By the time they arrive, the fumes have faded. But under UV, the accelerant glows like evidence from a crime show. Fire Marshal Rodriguez exhales through his nose. This wasn't random, Mr. Hoffman. Whoever did this knew what they were doing. Professional. Agent Morgan looks grim. They're escalating. Attempted arson. That's domestic terrorism territory. My phone buzzes again. Another unknown number. Nice boathouse. Shame if it caught fire. I hand the phone to the agents. Rodriguez's radio crackles before he can respond. House fire on Maple Street. Possible arson. My heart sinks. That's Tom's address. When I get there, the night sky's glowing red. Fire trucks line the street, hoses spraying smoke that smells like melted plastic and despair. Tom stands in the driveway, clutching a coffee mug like a shield, watching his livelihood burn. His landscaping truck gone. Twisted metal. Rodriguez steps up beside me. Started in the electrical panel. Same fuel signature as your boathouse. Only this time. They finished it. Tom turns when he sees me. They called, he says quietly. Who did? Delilah. Said the board was terminating my HOA contract for unreliable service. Hung up. 15 minutes later, my garage exploded. Agent Morgan arrives, photographing the charred panel, taking statements. "This isn't vandalism," she mutters. "This is organized intimidation. Domestic terrorism aimed at federal witnesses." But while we're standing in the ashes of Tom's garage, Delilah makes her next move. I come home to find bright Orange County notices stapled to every tree around Lake Serenity. Environmental hazard zone, public access prohibited. A county inspector, Peterson, hands me a clipboard of forms. "Mr. Hoffman, we received detailed reports of bacterial contamination and structural risks. Until our environmental review is complete, this area is under quarantine." "Who filed the report?" "Anonymous tip," he says, flipping through a binder thicker than a phone book. But the evidence package was extensive. Water tests, engineering data, impact studies. Every page is fake. Forged reports. Made-up numbers, official stamps that look real. "These are fabricated," I tell him. He sighs. "Sir, unless you can provide certified counter-evidence, we're required to enforce it." The bitter irony hits me. They're using fake federal authority to block real federal jurisdiction. I call Agent Morgan immediately. "They've quarantined the lake using falsified reports," I say. "Do you still have your original samples from your grandfather's kit?" "Yes. Get them to an independent lab right now. We'll need certified analysis to challenge it." I drive straight to the State University Environmental Lab. Dr. Sarah Kim, head of environmental chemistry, tests my samples under microscopes and spectrometers. Her brow furrows. "Mr. Hoffman, your lake water is pristine, perfectly balanced bacteria, no chemical traces, ideal oxygen levels. Whoever said it was contaminated is lying." I hand her the county's evidence binder. She flips through the pages, eyes narrowing. "These test results are impossible. They describe bacteria that would sterilize this lake completely. Either someone used samples from another source, or they invented the data." "Can you certify that?" "Absolutely. I'll issue an official analysis contradicting every single claim in this report." While I wait for the paperwork, my phone won't stop ringing. Harold First, panicked. "Marcus, the IRS just showed up. Audit. Anonymous tip about unreported income." Then Janet. "They shut down my yoga studio. Claimed I'm operating illegally in a residential zone. I've had permits for years." Then Tom, voice broken. "My insurance says they won't cover the fire. It's under federal review now. No payout until the investigation ends." By sunset, I sit alone on my dock, the only unmarked piece of land left. The reports say this water's poison, but I can see fish gliding through crystal clarity beneath my feet. That's when I realize they're not just targeting me anymore. They're using government systems as weapons. My phone rings again. "Agent Morgan." "Marcus, we traced those fake reports. They came from a company called Environmental Solutions, LLC. Addresses fake, EPA license numbers forged. Total fabrication." "How deep does this go?" "Deep. They're escalating faster than we can process." "How many people are in your group now?" 5, but they're under attack." "Then stay alert," she warns. "They'll try to isolate you next." That night, I dream of Lake Serenity turning black, fish floating belly up, the sound of silence louder than thunder. When I wake, chainsaws again. Smoke in the air. My boathouse, half rubble. But buried in one untouched corner of my grandfather's old wooden filing cabinet, I find it. The original 1887 land patents. Not courthouse copies, the actual documents, complete with wax seals and signatures from the territorial governor. The parchment trembles in my hands as I read the fine print through the smell of ash. Lake Serenity designated Federal Navigable Waterway under the Territorial Commerce Act. Section 847. Said designation grants the riparian owner exclusive federal protection from interference, forced sale, eminent domain, seizure, or environmental restriction without federal court order. I read it twice. Then again, federal protection. Against everything they've just done. Against seizure. Against quarantine. Against her. Delilah Winterbourne has no idea what's coming. Everything they've done isn't just harassment anymore. It's federal crime. I'm reaching for my phone to call Agent Morgan when it rings first. Harold's voice is trembling. "Marcus, you need to see something." "Meet me at the old McDonald's off Route 9. Come alone." 20 minutes later, Harold slides into the booth across from me. He looks like he hasn't slept in days, skin pale, eyes hollow. With shaking hands, he drops a thick manila envelope on the table. "I kept digging into the HOA's books," he whispers. "It's not just skimming. It's way bigger than that." He lays out spreadsheets, property deeds, and wire records. "Marcus, they've done this exact thing to 17 lakefront neighborhoods in the past 5 years." "I know," I say. "Agent Morgan mentioned multiple communities." "No," Harold interrupts, leaning in close. "You don't get it. Look at the buyers. I flipped through the property transfers. Each sale goes to a different company. Lakeside Development, Serenity Properties, LLC, Clearwater Holdings, Mountain View Acquisitions. On paper, all unrelated, but Harold traces each one with a pen. Different names, same owners. Delilah Winterbourne and Richard Castellanos. Every single one. It hits me like a punch to the gut. They're not just running scams through HOAs. They're building a real estate empire." Harold punches numbers into his calculator. "Average property bought for 80 grand. Flipped after fake environmental clearance for around 450. 17 times!" He turns the calculator toward me. $6.3 million in profit. I feel my stomach twist. Harold lowers his voice. 3 of those homeowners were elderly. All died within 6 months of losing their property. Heart attacks, strokes, stress-related illness. The air feels heavier. "So this isn't just theft," I whisper. "It's manslaughter," Harold nods. "And you, Marcus, are the first one they couldn't scare into silence. I think of Tom's burned-out garage, Janet's shuttered studio, Harold's IRS audit. They won't stop until they crush me, or until I crush them." That night, I spread Harold's evidence across my kitchen table beside the 1887 federal land patents I found in the boathouse ruins. The contrast is absurd. 19th century ink versus 21st century fraud. I call Agent Morgan. "I've got it all," I tell her. "Federal waterway protections, proof of organized property fraud, 17 victims over 5 years. Her voice sharpens. "How solid?" "Bank records, corporate filings, death certificates, cross-county property data. And the patents, they guarantee federal jurisdiction over the lake." Morgan exhales slowly. "That's ironclad. Every action they've taken violates commerce law. Tomorrow we go public. No more hiding." I hang up, staring out at the lake. The reflection of the concrete-filled canoe glows in the moonlight like a gravestone. My grandfather's voice echoes in my head. "Sometimes you fight fire with fire. Time to build a bigger fire." I call Harold. "Emergency meeting, my place." 1 hour. He shows up first, clutching a banker's box like it's a bomb. I stayed up all night making copies before they shut down my access. It's worse than we thought. Janet arrives next, yoga mat bag over her shoulder, but instead of mats, she's packed flyers and a printer. "I've been calling neighbors since dawn," she says. "They're ready." Tom pulls up last, driving a rental since his truck burned. "Brought maps," he says, rolling out hand-drawn property diagrams across my table. "Been tracking their targets. The room smells like paper, lavender oil, and smoke from my ruined boathouse. My living room feels less like a home and more like a war room. Show me what you've got," I tell Harold. He opens the box carefully. They funneled 47 grand to Rick's company over 2 years. But that's just the surface. The man keeps perfect records. Every payment, every fine, every fake repair. Classic white-collar arrogance. He flips through spreadsheets, each one cross-referenced and time-stamped. It's devastatingly thorough. Janet looks up from her phone. "I spoke to a woman from Delilah's last neighborhood. Same scam. Moved in, took control, bled them dry, moved on. 3 times before us." Tom adds, "Rick's credentials are bogus. His environmental license expired years ago. He's not even certified for structural inspections." Before I can respond, my phone rings again. An unknown number. "Mr. Hoffman?" "Sarah Kim, Channel 7 News. We've received multiple reports about HOA corruption in Willowbrook. Care to comment?" Word is spreading faster than we expected. An hour later, Agent Morgan calls. "Marcus, Harold's records connect the dots. We've confirmed similar shell companies across 4 counties. Estimated fraud, 12 million. They target properties with historical federal protections, homeowners who don't know their rights. They're exploiting ignorance on a massive scale. I glance at the faded ink of my 1887 land deed. My grandfather's words come back. The older the deed, the stronger the protection. The government gave away rights it forgot to take back. By sunset, cars start pulling into my driveway, one after another. Eleanor from down the road brings cookies. Bob crosses the lake with a handmade sign, Federal Waterway, Delilah Free Zone. Rita, the retired teacher, arrives with binders of HOA statements. "They've been overbilling us for years," she says. "And the Maple Street apartments?" "Not even under our HOA." Frank the electrician drops a folder on the table. "Delilah's pool installation violates 5 codes. No permits. Built right over a storm drain. 17 neighbors gather on my lawn by twilight, an impromptu resistance movement. Kids toss stones across the lake while adults whisper strategy. Harold outlines the plan with accountant precision. Tomorrow, emergency HOA meeting. I'll present financial proof. Janet will handle community awareness. Tom documents structural violations. Marcus, you lead with federal protection. Janet's already printing flyers, her rewritten bylaws ready to distribute. Sunlight is the best disinfectant, she says with a smile. As the crowd disperses, Agent Morgan calls again. Federal marshals move in tomorrow afternoon. We'll let you present the evidence first. Let the community see who their leaders really are. I step out onto my dock as the lake mirrors the last traces of daylight. Tomorrow, Willowbrook fights back. But at dawn, I wake to the deep roar of engines. Not chainsaws this time, bulldozers. Through my window, I see Rick driving an excavator, tearing trenches across the road. Behind him, county trucks roll in with road closed. Environmental hazard signs. They're cutting me off from the outside world. I run outside, shouting over the diesel roar. "Rick, what the hell are you doing?" He doesn't stop. "Emergency contamination protocol," he yells. A man in a county vest hands me papers. "Mr. Hoffman, groundwater contamination requires immediate isolation. By order of the Environmental Protection Office." The paper feels official. Seals, stamps, signatures. But I know better now. It's all fake. And this time they're trying to bury me alive. "Contamination from what?" I ask, trying to stay calm. "From your lake, sir," the county supervisor replies flatly. "Lab tests show high bacteria levels. We're under emergency orders to quarantine this zone." I unlock my phone and pull up the university lab reports from Dr. Kim, pristine results stamped and certified. "These are state-verified findings," I say. "Zero contamination. No bacteria, no toxins. You're looking at clean water." He barely glances at my screen. "Sir, county authority overrides private testing. Public safety protocols are non-negotiable." That's when I catch the real trick. Rick's excavator isn't just digging trenches to block the road. He's cutting a deep channel directly toward my lake. The realization hits like ice water. "You're not containing contamination," I shout. "You're draining the lake." Rick's smirk is visible even through the dust cloud. I call Agent Morgan immediately. "They're diverting Lake Serenity into the storm drain under fake emergency authority." "Are they on your land?" she asks. "They've crossed my property line about 50 feet in." "That's destruction of federal waterway infrastructure," she says. "Hold your position. Marshals are en route, but en route means 20 minutes. Rick can drain half my lake in that time." I sprint to my garage, grab my grandfather's old surveying kit, the same one we used decades ago to settle farm boundary disputes. I set up the transit, take GPS readings, and confirm what I already know. Rick's trench slices 47 feet into federally protected land. I march straight up to the excavator, shouting over the diesel roar. "Rick, you're in violation of federal boundary law." He cuts the engine. The sudden silence feels heavy, charged. "What boundaries?" he asks, pretending ignorance. I unfold the 1887 Federal Survey map. This drainage cut crosses into federal jurisdiction by 47 feet. That's destruction of navigable waterway property. The county supervisor steps closer, uneasy. "Where did you get those coordinates?" 30 years working survey lines with my grandfather," I reply. "Every boundary here is GPS certified to federal standards." Sirens break the tension, long, rising, unmistakable. 2 black SUVs race up my driveway. "Federal marshals, Agent Morgan steps out, her jacket catching the wind, holding a court injunction like a weapon. "Richard Castellanos," she announces, voice cutting through the air. "You're in direct violation of federal waterway protection statutes. Shut down all excavation immediately." Rick climbs down, hands shaking. "I'm following county orders." "County has no authority over federal water," Morgan snaps. "You're destroying protected infrastructure." An EPA specialist inspects the half-dug trench. "This cut would have drained 60% of the lake within 3 hours," he says grimly. Classic pattern. Deliberate environmental sabotage. Then comes the pushback. The county supervisor grabs his radio. "We've got federal interference in an active environmental operation. Requesting sheriff backup." Minutes later, flashing lights paint my yard red and blue. 3 sheriff cruisers roll in. It's a standoff. Federal marshals versus county law enforcement, both claiming jurisdiction. Sheriff Morrison, broad-shouldered and clearly uncomfortable, steps toward Agent Morgan. "Ma'am, county retains control during environmental emergencies. Your team needs to stand down." "Sheriff," Morgan says evenly, "this is a federally protected waterway. Your jurisdiction stops at the shoreline." County attorney says otherwise. Morgan dials her phone, hands it to him. "Federal prosecutor wants a word." He listens for maybe 30 seconds before his posture changes. Confidence drains from his face. "Yes, sir. I understand." He lowers the phone and turns to his men. "Pack it up. We're done." The county trucks begin backing out. Rick's face twists with panic. He jumps back into the excavator, throws the throttle forward, and lunges for the half-finished trench. "Stop him!" I yell. The excavator roars like an animal. The bucket digs deep. Water starts trickling through the cut. Marshal Rodriguez reacts fast. "Federal agents, shut down that machine!" Rick ignores him. The marshals draw weapons. "Step away from the equipment," Rodriguez shouts. Rick makes the worst choice of his life, swings the excavator arm toward the marshals like a weapon. 3 agents tackle him before the bucket finishes its swing. The engine chokes and dies. The sound of handcuffs clicking fills the air. Rick screams something about constitutional rights as they drag him off. Morgan walks to the edge of the trench. "He dug 30 feet, she says quietly. "If we'd been 10 minutes later, the lake would have been gone." I start documenting everything on my phone. It buzzes mid-recording. Delilah calling, "Marcus!" She spits, her voice shaking with fury. "You've made a grave mistake." "Actually," I say, "Rick's under arrest. Your scheme's collapsing. You're harboring environmental hazards on federal property," she snaps. "Check your email." She hangs up. Seconds later, a new message pings. Environmental Protection Services. The attachments look official. Reports claiming my lake contains deadly E. coli, my dock is a structural hazard, and my soil is contaminating 3 counties. All stamped, signed, formatted perfectly. Morgan peers over my shoulder. "These are high-level forgeries. Whoever made them knows how to fake federal seals." "Can we prove it?" I ask. "We can," she says, "but it'll take time to trace the signatures." I remember my grandfather's words. When they hit you with fake papers, hit back with real lawyers. So I call the number listed on the fake reports. "Environmental Protection Services, how may I assist you?" A polished voice answers. "Yes," I say. "I need to verify a report for Lake Serenity Willowbrook Estates. Reference code 9371 Alpha, a pause. Sir, that reference number doesn't exist in our system. This is a contamination report under your company's name. Sir, we don't conduct testing. We're a document printing firm in Buffalo." I put the call on speaker. Morgan's grin is pure satisfaction. "That's all I needed," she murmurs. By afternoon, the scene explodes into chaos. Channel 7 news vans arrive. Reporter Sarah Kim steps out with a cameraman. Right as Delilah pulls into my driveway in a county environmental vehicle she has no authority to drive. As Sarah starts her live broadcast, Delilah storms toward us. "This is media interference in an environmental emergency," she yells. Sarah turns her mic toward me. "Mr. Hoffman, how does it feel to confirm that your lake is under federal protection from HOA overreach?" Before I can answer, Delilah cuts in. "This man's property contains deadly bacteria. You're putting the entire community at risk." Sarah pivots to Delilah. "Ma'am, could you please state your name and title?" "Delilah Winterbourne," she says stiffly. HOA President and Emergency Environmental Coordinator. Sarah frowns. That's not a recognized federal title. What's your EPA certification number? Delilah freezes, eyes darting. Agent Morgan steps forward, calm but lethal. There's no such position as Emergency Environmental Coordinator. And the contamination reports you filed are forged, Delilah stammers. That's not true. Richard Castellanos, Morgan interrupts, is in federal custody for document fraud and environmental sabotage. Delilah's face collapses under the weight of realization. Sarah Kim senses blood. Mrs. Winterbourne, she says smoothly, how do you respond to allegations that you've defrauded homeowners across multiple communities? Delilah's mouth opens and closes. This interview is over, she snaps, lunging for the camera. Federal Marshal Rodriguez intercepts her. Delilah Winterbourne, he announces, you are under arrest for conspiracy, document forgery, and environmental terrorism. She bolts, actually runs across my lawn, shoes sinking into the mud, aiming for the lake like she might swim to freedom. She doesn't make it. Rodriguez catches her mid-stride. She trips, face plants next to the concrete-filled canoe. Channel 7 films everything. Handcuffs click. Loons cry. Neighbors cheer from their porches. For the first time in months, Willowbrook breathes again. But as Delilah's shoved into the federal SUV, she turns and screams, the emergency HOA meeting is still happening tonight. They'll vote you out, Marcus. Even in handcuffs, she's still trying to control the narrative. By 7 p.m., the emergency HOA meeting fills the Willowbrook Community Center to capacity. The smell of burnt coffee and anticipation hangs in the air. Harold sits at the front, banker's box of evidence beside him. Janet sets up the projector. Tom adjusts the microphone, but the problem? Legally, Delilah is still president, for now. And her loyalists, the ones who stayed quiet while she terrorized everyone, are here too. The first to speak is Mrs. Kansky from the corner lot, her voice trembling but defiant. This meeting is invalid, Mrs. Kansky declares, standing tall, voice trembling with outrage. Our president has been unlawfully detained on fabricated charges. We can't proceed without legal counsel present. Sit down, Margaret. Eleanor's voice slices through the chaos like a sharpened blade. We've waited 5 years for this truth to come out. Bob slams his palm on the table. Order. Harold called this emergency session under the bylaws for financial misconduct. He deserves the floor. Harold rises, adjusting his glasses, eyes heavy with sleepless nights but steady with resolve. Friends and neighbors, for 3 years I've served as your treasurer. What I uncovered shocked me to my core. He clicks the projector. The lights dim. Numbers and account statements flood the wall. Cold, undeniable proof. Over $47,000 paid to Richard Castellanos for so-called environmental consulting. Here's what we actually bought. The next slide hits like a gut punch. Fake contamination reports. Forged inspection results, counterfeit permits. Every single dollar, Harold says, voice cracking, was spent fabricating evidence to harass our own homeowners. The murmurs build into a wave of outrage. Faces turn pale as neighbors realize they'd been financing their own torment. Tom stands next, fists clenched. She didn't just steal money, she ruined people's lives. Mrs. Patterson sold her home for half its worth because of those lies. Martha Fleming died 6 months after losing hers. Margaret tries again, voice wavering. These are dangerous accusations, and without proof. I rise, holding up the weathered parchment. This is proof. My property's federal waterway protections date back to 1887. Every violation Delilah filed against me violated federal law. Every fine, criminally fraudulent. The room freezes as the doors open. Agent Sarah Morgan enters, flanked by 2 federal marshals. Silence swallows the air. Good evening, she says firmly. I'm Agent Morgan, FBI. Your HOA president and her associate are now in federal custody, charged with organized fraud, elder abuse, and environmental terrorism. This investigation covers 4 counties and totals over $12 million in fraudulent property transfers. Gasps ripple through the hall. The shock is physical. We've documented 17 victims, she continues, 3 of whom died within months of losing their homes due to harassment. Mrs. Kansky sinks back into her chair, whispering, That can't be true. Harold clicks to the final slide. Corporate registrations tying every fake company back to Delilah Winterbourne and Richard Castellanos. They weren't protecting our neighborhood, he says softly. They were flipping it for profit. Eleanor looks at Margaret, voice quiet but cutting. They weren't defending property values, Margaret. They were stealing property. The crowd erupts, shouting, tears, raw fury after years of fear. Bob bangs the table again. We're voting now. Janet stands, papers in hand. I motion to remove the current board immediately and hold emergency elections with full financial transparency. Seconded. At least a dozen voices echo, but Margaret makes one last stand. You can't vote without notice, parliamentary rules. That's when Channel 7's crew pushes through the doorway. Sarah Kim's camera light flares to life. Mrs. Kansky, Sarah says, microphone extended, how do you respond to allegations that you aided in the cover-up of fraudulent HOA activity? Margaret freezes, eyes wide. I never, this is harassment. Agent Morgan steps forward. Ma'am, we have evidence showing your participation in several false violation filings. You'll need to come with us. Applause breaks out as federal agents lead her away in cuffs, the sound of liberation echoing through the hall. Bob calls for the final vote. All in favor of dissolving the board and electing new leadership? Every hand rises. 43 in favor. 2 too stunned to move. Eleanor stands tall. I nominate Harold as treasurer, Janet as secretary, and Marcus as our Waterway protection officer, the first in HOA history. I laugh nervously. I just wanted to fish, not run a revolution, Bob grins. You earned it, Marcus. Later, as people file out and the chatter fades, Agent Morgan pulls me aside. You realize this is the biggest HOA fraud case the Bureau's ever seen. You helped blow open a criminal empire. That night, the stars shimmer over the calm surface of Lake Serenity. For the first time in years, the water looks truly peaceful. 6 months later, I'm sitting on my rebuilt dock, watching sunrise spill gold across the lake. The water's clear enough to see the base glide beneath the surface. Delilah Winterbourne, 7 years in federal prison. Rick Castellanos, 5 years plus restitution that'll bankrupt him for decades. Margaret Kansky, pled guilty, probation, and mandatory restitution. Harold's forensic work recovered $31,000 of stolen HOA funds. We used it to repair roads, build a new playground, and restore what Delilah neglected. Janet, once our quiet yoga instructor, now leads the Transparency Committee. Every expense over $50 requires public approval. No more secret budgets. Tom rebuilt his landscaping business, and his new clients came pouring in after Channel 7's documentary went viral. Eleanor, our neighborhood matriarch, started documenting everything, turning our nightmare into a handbook for other communities. She's even helping the county form a senior protection task force. We discovered 17 other lakefront properties share the same forgotten federal protections. Now knowledge is spreading faster than fear ever did. The concrete-filled canoe that once symbolized destruction now overflows with flowers in the community center courtyard. Kids hide behind it during games, laughing instead of crying. Agent Morgan's investigation uncovered 43 victims across 6 counties, recovering over $8 million. The case is now used in FBI training academies as a model for organized real estate fraud. But the real win feels simpler. Mrs. Patterson came home. Her health rebounded once she returned to the lake. She tends our garden now, teaching children about native plants and patience. Martha Fleming's family sued and won a settlement that funds scholarships for students studying environmental law, turning tragedy into legacy. Last month, we hosted our first annual Federal Waterway Festival. Families swimming, kids kayaking, barbecue smoke drifting across the water. I used part of my settlement to start a veterans retreat program, giving combat vets weekends of fishing, quiet, and peace they thought they'd lost forever. Harold now teaches senior financial workshops, and Tom maintains the community grounds he once nearly lost. Channel 7's documentary even won a regional Emmy. Sarah Kim drops by sometimes. She's helping other towns fight back. These days, the only sounds at dawn are birds and rippling water. No excavators, no shouting, just serenity. The federal government officially recognized Lake Serenity as a protected historical waterway, ensuring no HOA can ever threaten it again. And as the sunrise glows across the water, I realize this story isn't just about property rights. It's about what happens when ordinary people refuse to be bullied. We learn that the best defense against corruption isn't fear. It's knowledge. So, what's your HOA nightmare story? Drop it in the comments. And if you believe in justice served with a side of poetic karma, hit subscribe for more true-life victories. Because sometimes, the law really is on the little guy's side. This is HOA Story Files, where every storm ends in sunlight.